Hey guys, welcome back to the Snapprint Chronicles. Today we're coming back at you with another Ratchet video. This time we have a Tru-Test Ratchet. This is the Tru-Test T1260-3 and it's manufactured in the USA. But before we jump into this, if you find these videos at all helpful or entertaining, could you please give me a like and also subscribe to this channel. Alright, this Ratchet might look familiar to you, but it's kind of a little bit deceiving also. Tru-Test, I think it was under the banner of Proto, because here we have an identical Ratchet, and this is the Challenger by Proto, and this is also the 1260 manufactured in USA. But not to be confused with the New Britain design, because these are pretty identical also. If you look at these, they are pretty much, if you didn't know anything was amiss, you would think that these would be identical. They have the same switches, almost the same shapes, the same thicknesses of the head, pretty much. They both have the rings on the inside of the mechanism, and this one's a Husky, by the way, but you know, it's the ubiquitous floating paw New Britain design that they are famous for. But this one's a little bit different. It's a look-alike to the Husky or the New Britain, but it's not quite the same thing. And we'll open it up inside and you can take a look. I already opened up the ring. I got it off. I put it up on the lip here just to save some time, but the ring, it has a little notch there, and you would use like a little pick or screwdriver, small screwdriver, to coax it out. It could be a little bit more difficult than the rings that are on the outside, so it might take you a little bit of time to get the ring out. And this is what the ring looks like. Not much to see. And you push out, and here is the mechanism. And right off the bat, you can see it's not the same mechanism as the New Britain. But let's take a look inside the head so we can see the broaching. This is, I think, 60 teeth. This is a 3/8 model and 60 teeth, but this one really shines. This is what I'm talking about. This broaching is almost perfect. You can see the teeth there. You can see the lines. Everything is very clean. No weird marks, no nothing. And the real test is, you know, usually the broaching is always good here in the front, but usually it's always the back teeth or towards the back of the broaching that's always kind of messed up on some other Ratchets. And here we can see that this one is almost perfect from front to back. The teeth are all symmetrical. No chewed up teeth like sometimes you would see on other Ratchets. Like, they'll look good here on the front, the beginning of the teeth, but towards the back they get chewed up in the broaching process. But not this one. This one looks good all the way around, so you can see there. And of course I got to be a stickler, and I do see one tooth right there that's kind of uneven, the tip there, but that's just me being a hard head. But pretty much this is great. The broaching. Here is the knurling. The knurling is a bit aggressive. I wouldn't say it's perfect. It's good. I mean, it's all the way through. It's good. It's not sloppy. They don't have areas where it's thin and then it gets good. This is pretty good throughout. Or you can say it's the same throughout, at least. But pretty decent also. Has a good aggressive feel to it. Here's the mechanism, and this is pretty much a typical rocking pawl, you know, a la SK, but a little bit better probably. You see this pawl is pretty new. It's 5 teeth per side. The teeth and the paw is kind of wide. And the funny thing about this mechanism and the Ratchet is that later on versions, this is the T1260-3. I think later on versions where they had -4 instead of -3, they actually had a double paw mechanism on those, which would even improve things even more, because you would have 2 paws instead of 1. And right now, unfortunately, I don't have one of those. I just have this one and the Proto Challenger I showed you. They just have 1 paw. But I have seen who did a review? Catus Maximus. He did a review of, I think, a Proto Challenger, and it was a -4 and it had 2 paws in it, which I was surprised when I got mine that didn't have 2 paws in it. I was like, I wonder what happened. But I guess just later on they added a paw. And this is, for some reason, this is spring loaded, and we'll get into that later. So what I do is I just press down whatever side's up, and then I just wiggle the switch out. You see it's peeking out, the ball there. Keep your fingers covering it so it won't fly out. And here is, it's a hollow plunger. You can see there, it's hollow on the bottom. And there's a spring in there, in the switch. The switch is made of metal, of course, and this is what it looks like. I think I'll just leave the spring in there because it looks pretty small. Oh, you know what? I'll show you guys what the spring looks like. There it is. Just a little tiny spring. And I'll put that back in there. Okay, and here's the open face, and you see the pin that holds the paw, and that just slides out. Here's a look at the pin. The pin looks pretty standard. Looks not super thick, but not thin either. Looks decent. And here we have the paw. This is what the paw looks like. Looks pretty well machined. Looks nice. There's underneath the paw. Looks brand new, pretty much, from what I can tell. Maybe needs a little brushing, but all in all, looks pretty pristine. And here is the housing for the mechanism. Oh yeah, and there is a spring. I told you it was spring loaded. Let me see if I can grab it. Oh boy. You know what? I don't think it wants to come out. I think I might just leave it in there. I just show you. There's like a cone spring in there. At the bottom, the tip of the cone is facing up and the rest of the spring is facing down. And I really don't want to fight with it, so I'll just leave it in there. But you know it's in there. You can see it there. Alright, and oh, well, let's look at the housing here. Looks pretty good. Everything's well machined on this. The broaching, the machining, everything is pretty top notch. There's a little trench here. For some reason, I don't know why, but I don't see any use for it. That's cut around the anvil side of the mechanism. Has this trench cut in there. Has two dimples here for some reason. Don't know what that's there for. And the ball detent looks decent, well centered. Looks pretty tight. Yeah, it's a tight one. Alright, so to get this all back together, you just take your pawl, you line it up with the hole, you pin, drop that in like that. This is thankfully one of the simpler ones. You don't have to do a lot to take it apart or put it back together. You take your plunger, get it back on top of the spring in the hole, and just put it like that. Grab yourself a utensil and press down and press in. And just like that. See how spring loaded? That comes into play when the mechanism, and you might want to put the pawl in the middle to make it easier to get in. And I'll explain to you the spring in a second. And here I'm going to try to get the ring in. Maybe I shouldn't, because this might be what eats up most of my time. Oh, see if this cooperates. Okay. There we go. That's what it looks like with the complete coil ring intact and in place. See, it has the little, it has that little cutout there, so you can, with a pick, if you're lucky, or a little screwdriver, you can pry it out and take it off. Okay, that spring that's in the mechanism, that's in the switch. You see how this, there's no shake or rattle in this. I think the spring is there to keep the switch from rattling. It applies pressure, outward pressure against the switch where it catches here in the mechanism. So there's no rattle. The New Britain design, on the other hand, rattle. There's no spring or nothing. So this switch is just like floating. So there's a definite rattle there. Not too bad. If you put some oil, I don't recommend grease on this design, but if you put some oil, maybe a little bit of grease around the edge, you probably won't get that too much. But I have dealt with that before with switches that are kind of like just loose. But that spring in this one keeps everything tight. So yeah, a good ratchet. I mean, the machining and broaching on this is pretty top notch. The design is, I guess, a good, SK style design. Can't compare it to the New Britain. It's a totally different design. These two might look similar, but they are way different once you open them up. If I open this up, you've seen this 100. I've done a bunch of videos on these. If I open this up, you can see this is a totally different design. Some might say better. I don't know. I have my preferences, but I'll let you guys be the judge. All right, guys. Until next time.